in the Eisenberg School of Management. We appreciate you joining us today to witness the showcase of our social entrepreneurship students, and also to experience the what I'd call coaching and questioning from our judges today to encourage them. Next slide, please. We are seated in the heart of the Pioneer Valley at the University of Massachusetts. I'd say coming to you live from the beautiful campus here, and also coming to you virtually from around the Pioneer Valley in the US. Next slide, please. If we think about the University of Massachusetts, this gives you a snapshot of the class of 2024, over 5,000 students coming in, many of them from out of state, 950-ish. 33% of them represent the Alana students, what we sometimes call BIPOC now. And there were 40 applications that came in this year. Very, very strong freshman class at the University of Massachusetts, which also is reflected in our upperclassmen. Next slide, please. Entrepreneurship is reflected across the campus. As you see here, one of our guides chatting with potential new students and their parents right near the old chapel, just in the backdrop of the library and across from our incubator space. Talking to these students about the exciting things going on at UMass across campus. And we again, entrepreneurship is that. It's not just engineering and innovation. And STEM, it's not just business in the Eisenberg School, but we see entrepreneurship across the campus. Next slide, please. Across the campus in the halls of our science buildings. Next slide, please. Across the campus in arts, we actually have an institute that houses an arts entrepreneurship initiative that has been around since the 1970s. And this is a picture of our Fine Arts Center, which I think is a pure reflection of that, recently named the Bromley Center for Fine Arts after a past chancellor. Next slide, please. And in our co-curricular activities, which occur mostly weekly throughout the 14-15-week semester, here you see students working on customer discovery with customer discovery coaches and passionately engaged in moving entrepreneurship forward. Next slide, please. And last but not least, at the University of Massachusetts, we all know 6 years running that UMass has the #1 dining in the world. And we'd love for you to come join us and learn more about our entrepreneurship programs and dine with us and exchange ideas. Next slide, please. The Bethune Center here at the Bethune Center, we have two tracks, one in the fall and one in the spring, that stimulate entrepreneurship growth. The Innovation Entrepreneurship Academy in the fall with 5 opportunities for students to pitch their ideas. The Social Entrepreneurship Challenge, Carly would say, new to us. This is a challenge that we've renamed to encourage entrepreneurship across campus, not just with respect to enterprise, but with respect to impact. We also have our minute pitch, executive pitch, and tech challenge. The executive pitch and tech challenge happened earlier this week, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and we're wrapping it up with the Social Entrepreneurship Challenge. New will be the business plan competition coming in the fall of 2020. And then we amp it up in the spring. We amp it up in the spring with an elevated competition. The preliminary round happens and the judges, similar to you, get to choose 5 ventures that go on to the final. This is open to all contestants. You don't have to compete in the fall, but this innovation challenge really focuses in on buttoning up, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's with the planning and the learning that the students have gotten in the fall. Next slide, please, Carl. And again, I'd like to introduce our office manager and social media extraordinaire. There's going to be some pictures of you maybe posted as you dig in and question the ventures pictures, screenshots of Zoom, and then put on social media. We appreciate Amy. Thank you. Next slide. We have a team of MBA fellows that coach and guide our students. This is a subset of them. They work incredibly hard doing office hours to make sure that the students have what they need. Next slide, please. And then our student staff, some of them may be popping in. Hannah and Alexa are on the screens now and helping in the background. They'll be bringing the students in from the waiting room, so to speak, and making sure that they get the appropriate attention and get the appropriate social media contact. Next slide, please. And then I'd like to pass it to each of you to introduce yourselves. I'm going to start alphabetically with Roy.
So hi, and thank you, Greg, for that awesome intro about UMass. So my name is Roy. I'm an engineer at Keurig Dr. Pepper, and I lead the software UI development for a couple of our brewers. I was at UMass as a grad student in computer science, but I also had the wonderful opportunity to work with the Birthing Center to really advance social entrepreneurship across campus, to really touch all those different areas of UMass that Greg was talking about. So, and here I am, and I'm very honored to be judging this competition.
Thank you, Roy. And Julie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Cowan, and I work with Mass Development, which is the state's economic development and finance agency. Prior to joining the agency, I was a career commercial lender, very familiar with the businesses that have come out of the wonder that is UMass Amherst. And I want to say that I'm so happy to be invited to participate today. As someone who is a social investor, a longtime volunteer, and a committed philanthropist, the idea that we can take businesses not just with a profit motivation, but to understand how they can impact the world, how they can make it better, and how we can all leave a brighter future for those that come after us. And I'm so inspired and eager to hear what great ideas we'll be learning about today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. And Caroline Murray, please introduce.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caroline Murray. I am the founder and principal of Innovative Organizing. I'm a political strategist and organizational development consultant working with frontline organizations across the country as they develop strategies to move away from the extractive economy to sustainable regenerative economies. And I specialize in creating entities and businesses and alternative institutions that are controlled by the community and rooted in values, moving towards sharing the social impacts of those businesses and cooperatives. I'm also a UMass alumni and was a STEPIC student back in the 80s. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. And Eric Rao.
Hey guys. So I actually was a little bit of an entrepreneur back in my college days. I started an iPhone game development studio after school, and we had a couple of fun apps that we built way back when. I don't know. Anyway, since then I work at EY now as a technology consultant, but also in our innovation business unit across the Americas. I've been building our incubator that looks within the firm to find opportunities for us to invest and help our people build new things and that we can bring to our clients, either driving new business or helping us deliver existing business, that sort of thing. We've also been looking at some ESG-based opportunities and building a few tools to help us serve some of those efforts. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you all, and I hope you're ready to talk to these 6 teams today. They've got something fun for you, all of them, fun, interesting, and impactful. Next slide, please, Carly. And so with that, your captain for the day, your captain, your engineer, your pilot, Carly is going to take us through the day and ensure that we have a smooth operation. Carly Facada, the program manager for the Bethune Center and the program director for our Collegiate Summer Venture Program. Carly Facade, take it away.
Thank you so much, Gregory. If you're in the audience, we're so glad to see you here today to support our innovative and entrepreneurial UMass startups that are going to be joining us today. As Gregory mentioned, you are going to hear from 6 innovative new companies that are working on solving tough problems around the world. They each have an opportunity to pitch for 4 minutes, and then they're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A from our judges, who are then going to fill in their scorecards before we bring up the next pitcher. We have a couple of minutes before we bring on our first pitch of the day, Sequestrar. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a break with some music as our judges are pulling up their scorecards and we get going shortly. But if you're in the audience, thank you so much for joining us today for our first ever UMass Social Entrepreneurship Challenge. And if you've been watching our 3 other competitions this week, the Executive Pitch Challenge, the Tech Challenge, and our now Social Entrepreneurship Challenge, thank you so much for joining us for our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Academy Week. Okay, our first startup is here and ready to go. Jose, if you want to pull up your slide deck, you're welcome to do so now. Fantastic. Your deck looks great. We can see you. Let's make sure we can hear you.
Hello, hello, testing.
Perfect. Okay, judges, as a reminder, you have 4 minutes to pitch. With 5 minutes of Q&A, you will see the scorecard up on the screen. As soon as you start pitching, we will start the timer. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much, Carly. Hello, everyone. My name is Jose LaSalle. I'm the founder and CEO of Hempax. Based here out of UMass Amherst, we are providing solutions to address the critical bottlenecks of decarbonization of utilities and the electrification of transportation and buildings. The challenge with decarbonization, bringing on solar and wind, is that they're intermittent and variable and cannot meet the baseload power. In addition, we have increased power demands from the electrification of transportation and buildings. This is solved in part by deploying batteries, but batteries are like marathon runners in that they can output a moderate amount of power over many hours. But if you ask them to sprint, they will struggle to do so while degrading their lifespan. So what they need is a sprinter to pass the baton off to for the high power applications on the grid. This is the value of the Hempax solution, providing bio-based ultracapacitors to pair with batteries to enable utilities to safely provide reliable and affordable power from renewable sources, filling in the power gaps that batteries leave behind, having compatibility with current grid infrastructure, increasing safety and lifespan of the battery, reducing the cost and size, all while embedding a social and environmental equity into our business and technology. Looking at the core of our tech, it is a novel bio-based electrode material sourced from hemp, grown by BIPOC farmers, to create high energy dense ultracapacitors in a standard form factor. We're currently at technology readiness level 4 and have filed our non-provisional patent. Having a quick look at our roadmap here, we've raised $100,000 in angel investment. And our goal next is to take our coin cell from TRL 4 to technology readiness level 5, go to 6 with a cylindrical cell from there, and 7 at a pilot site. And then to license our technology and execute our first customer contracts from there, all while building relationships with more BIPOC hemp farmers. Our business model is providing our products to licensing it to produce products to sell to utilities and grid asset developers, having secondary markets in electric vehicle and wind turbine manufacturers, as well as the built environment. Looking at our market validation, we're selling into an $8 billion ultracapacitor market, and our nation's top technologists at NREL and Sandia have identified ultracapacitors as a key technology for the energy transition, and this has been affirmed through our I-Core program at MIT. Taking a quick look also at our founding team, it consists of myself, Joe Hastry, our COO and CFO, and Alex Nichols, our VP of Engineering. All of us are UMass Amherst alum. I myself have 8+ years in ultracapacitor research. Joe has 6 years as a professional CPA working at one of our world's top accounting firms. And Alex has nearly a decade of experience working in tech leadership in multiple startups. We also work with Dr. Brian Jing, specialty in battery chemistry, Dr. Arnaud Magie with specialty in nanomaterials, Diane Danielson with international COO expertise, and Nathaniel Donio, who is former Con Edison. We also work with UW Seattle Clean Energy Testbed on microgrid simulations and thousands of acres of BIPOC farmers across the US. Looking at our impact, we aim to reduce emissions by deploying our technology and bringing on renewables, allowing the proliferation of farmland for BIPOC farmers for every megawatt that we sell, representing 1.5 acres of hemp produced, and 9 metric tons of CO2 sequestered per megawatt. We are aligned with UN Sustainability Goals 7 through 13. So far today, we are at this stage where we've raised capital and have achieved a good technology readiness level. Moving forward, we aim to bring on advisors, pilot partners, and raise catalytic capital from organizations who want to invest in minority founders to continue to de-risk our technology and continue to build out our team. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions that you have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jose. We're going to jump right into our 5-minute Q&A with our judges.
And judges, just ask questions as you will. Unmute and ask.
Hello, I have a question. This is Caroline. I can't see myself, but I guess I should just keep going. That was great. Thank you so much, Jose. That was fabulous.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned BIPOC farmers a few times, which is great. I want to ask you if you're familiar with the agricultural wages and the farm worker wages, and if you plan to adjust the minimum wage that's required by the federal government and pay more, given that the agricultural minimum wage is sub-poverty.
Yes, so we are currently working with, like I mentioned, over 1,000 acres of farmers from the Southeast, the Anishinaabe tribe, and multiple other groups and organizations who are basically defining the economic model for having a hemp farming venture that can create economic sustainability and financial solvency as a farming venture. So that is what we're currently in conversation with these farming groups to ensure that we bake in a fair economic exchange for the hemp that we purchase from them, and ensure that that is well above the minimum that is, as you mentioned, essentially, an impoverished wage.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Jose. This is Julie Cowan. A question for you regarding the actual manufacturing of these capacitors. You talk about the sourcing through farms in the Southeast. Where do you plan to manufacture them? Do you plan to manufacture them, or is it simply that you would license them and have someone else manufacture them on your behalf?
Yeah, so I will say that I'll qualify that we're we're early stage in the de-risking phase. One of the potential avenues for us is to license our technology and to have potentially localized reactors to convert the hemp into the electrode material in certain bioregions, sourcing, localized to the different farms that we source from. Alternatively, shipping it to central locations and having either ourselves go through this process, but most likely licensing it out to industry partners who have decades of expertise doing this work and bringing products into the market. Thank you for your question.
How much testing at scale have you done?
We have only tested our coin cells at milliwatt scale. So we are working in the standard form factor in early energy storage technology, which is small scale coin cells. From there, we intend to find the right recipe in this de-risking phase, recipe and process, bring that into higher production cylindrical cells that we can then deploy as modules and test in hardware in the loop testing at Flex Power as well as UW Seattle's clean energy test beds. However, I will also mention that we have done simulations with UW Seattle's clean energy test beds on taking our current metrics and applying that at scale in real-time computer simulations to see how you take a lithium-ion battery plus a solar panel for solar smoothing applications and how that compares for the cost and functionality and expansion of the lifespan of the battery when you also add in our ultracapacitor. So we have those simulations, but that's as far as we've gotten in terms of scale.
Cool.
So to jump off of a prior question about manufacturing. So even if you're licensing this, right, somebody has to, have access to the components that you're talking about to build the coin cells at scale. Do you foresee any difficulties with supply shortages coming up, and what would be your plan for that?
Yes, so our focus is domestic supply, which has become a national priority as well for our input material, which is the hemp biomass. In terms of that supply, we have very, very little concern that we can supply that, given the oversupply that we actually have with the network of farms that we're working with. In terms of other materials that go into the cylindrical cells and modules that we will be making or licensees will be making, that has not become a problem in the conversations that we've had with those potential suppliers, such as MTI, for example. However, if that comes up, we will leverage our partnerships and strategic advisors on how to navigate that.
Fantastic, Jose. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for your time, and please reach out if you have any other questions.
Great work. Judges, we're going to give you a few minutes to fill in your judges' scorecard as we pull up the next team and play a little bit of music in between.
Judges, as you complete your scorecard, the next contestant will be up soon. We're having some slight technical difficulties that we're navigating in the background. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you, judges, for filling in the scorecard. We now have our next team. Alvin, you are welcome to pull up your deck at this time, and we will start the timer as soon as you start pitching. As a reminder, you have 4 minutes to pitch with 5 minutes of Q&A.
All right, can everybody see it okay?
Yep.
All right, awesome. I guess I'll start. Hi, everybody. My name is Alvin. I'm here to present my pitch for Ramir for AI therapy. So our focus is on trying to create artificial empathy and using that to leverage the capabilities of using AI therapy to try and replace and also cut into the market for how current therapy options are being used at the moment. So right now, in the problems in the space of mental health, is that since COVID has happened, more and more people need mental health resources. People need better access to therapy, and that has been significantly becoming harder and harder to get to as there's more people that need it. And there's that accessibility issue, as well as the stigma that goes behind reaching out and trying to find forms of therapy help. And our solution is through the current AI limitations in AI therapy, which is that currently there isn't really a way that it's able to build like a connection and create empathy between its users. So robots aren't really able to communicate with people in the same way. So our solution is in our product, Ramir, which uses machine learning to trace and track how individual users' speech pathology and how that interacts with the devices. So every time that the person speaks and says something in a certain way, for example, if you go to it and you're like, hey, this is what's going on. It'll notice that your voice is being lowered, your tone is slow, and it'll notice that maybe your sentences end on a downturn. So as it realizes that, it will mirror that, hence the name Rainier, and it will follow the same like tone, pitch, and speed sound of voice that you make. And in that way, mirror and model the way that you speak in order to create a feeling of that you're being able to be listened to, heard, and understood. The current market size has a huge growth for the AI market. And also there are over 76 million adults in the US that are hiding their mental disorders. And there's a huge market for the AI global market projection. So there's a huge space that's going into. For why us, in the last year, I competed in the KPMG Ideation Challenge and made it to the US semifinals for this. In the past, I've competed in more than 20 competitions and placed and won 10 different awards. And this is also the 5th startup that I've worked on and consulted and talked to more than 30 other startups. In the last year, I've also generated over $300,000 in revenue for startups and clients that I've personally worked on. And I've grown over 75,000 Instagram followers, understand growth marketing, and I've worked at Dell, currently work at Dell and worked at Discord last semester and have contacts to reach out to both between professors at UMass that I'm currently talking to and in other companies as well. For current competition, the different competitive space has various areas. There's the Amazon Web Services area, which is basically doing the speech to text to speech type interaction. And then also there's different aspects of therapy and how that works. But all of those don't really connect the therapy and speaking aspects, and they don't allow for communication and modeling back in the terms of tone and voice in order to give that artificial empathy feeling. So for next steps, we're looking for research funding, as well as talking to different, I've been reaching out to a number of professors in the last week, as well as going to MBA office hours and talking to a lot of people about it. Right now, the next steps are to go for a provisional patent for the steps and processes in order to make this work, and then also look for other team members and then grow the team and then establish yourself in the market. And thank you. That's all. Any questions?
Great, thank you so much. We'll go straight into our 5-minute Q&A with our judges.
Did you say this is both the technology to encourage empathy and the therapy based in an AI?
Yeah, so the issue that we're trying to address is, so in using AI for therapy in the communication aspects, that's not what we are building, but it's what a lot of other people have been trying to build. But the main lacking part of it is, regardless of however that works, people aren't really able to build a connection to the robots that they're talking to because they don't feel like they're talking to an actual person. So what I aim to do is to be able to pass a Turing test in the sense that people wouldn't really be able to tell that they're talking to a non-human. And then further than that, also feel that whatever it is that they're talking to is able to empathize with them, and then feel a connection and bond that they can grow through the user and the computer.
So you need a therapy partner?
Yes, but that would be, we're basically working on the technology for the aspect of the voice modeling change, and then afterwards partnering with another company for that. Yes.
So Alvin, how do you develop a baseline for what someone's typical speech is versus when they are highly stressed or perhaps depressive? It's interesting that you're trying to build in or manufacture the empathy for the user, but how do you create that data bank of information so that you know when I'm having a good day and when I'm having a bad one?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the further down the line research, also we'll be talking to different professors in the psych department at UMass, as well as research in that area to try and differentiate. And also with like machine learning stuff, basically assigning, eventually trying to assign different data values, like numerical values, to different like tones, certain words that may indicate more of like a depressive thing. But our first initial like MVP product that we're trying to put out would just essentially be just the straight modeling and mirroring back exactly the tone of how you're speaking. So if you go to it and you're like, hey, I'm feeling kind of down today, this is what's going on, you would kind of notice that tone of voice and then be like, hey, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And then that way it feels like it's empathizing with you in whatever conversation they come back with. And say another time, if you're like, hey, guess what? This is going on. Then it'll be like, that's awesome. Let's try this. Or like, let's do that. And then you feel like you're actually having a conversation with something that understands the content of what you're saying and how that feels based off of just mirroring and copying, matching the tone, pitch, volume, and speed of sound.
So it is in fact mirroring the speech that you're delivering in the moment.
Yes.
It's not where it would know if my natural speech pattern is one where I lift up at the end of the sentence, it will only know that I'm having a challenge if when I deliver words that are atypical or an anomaly to that. Okay.
Yeah. In the end goal, it would be that hopefully as more research with this happens, then we'd be able to learn more about that as well. But in the meantime, what I'm focusing on developing right now is just the immediate copying the same tone, pitch, voice thing.
Do you foresee any difficulties with those where English is not their first language? One, and then two, any potential biases when you're training the AI based on regional differences, like accents, for example?
Yeah, definitely. So with the tone inflection and fluctuations that we're starting off with, so in terms of like speech for like Alexa devices and other like common those kinds of things, there's a big amount of research that goes into all these like different like say somebody's from a different area, their speaking is a little bit different languages, those kinds of things. But generally, in the terms of empathy and feeling, the sound tones are mostly universal. And when you have certain inflections at the beginnings and ends of sentences, regardless of what that is, even if it's different for a certain culture, it would be matched and mirrored in the same way, so that ideally what you say, it responds in the same mood back to you. So then you'd be able to replicate that feeling.
Alvin, thank you. Could you articulate, I know we don't have much time left, but could you articulate what is different in the world in 5 years if this is successful?
Yeah, so if this is different, then you would potentially greatly change the way that human and AI or like any sort of computer technology interact with each other, because you would be able to have computers be able to have a humanized feeling of interaction. And that way it could expand greatly into like therapy. It could eventually go into a place where potentially like therapists and doctors can be fully like
fantastic. Alvin, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're a little over our 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Judges, you have a couple of minutes as always to fill in your scorecard as we pull up our next team. Okay, welcome Team Microblaster. As our judges are filling in, we're just waiting on 2 more scorecards. If you'd like to pull up your deck, you're more than welcome to do so now. I'll let you know when you're good to go. Fantastic. I now have all of our judges' scorecards. As a reminder, you have 4 minutes to pitch with 5 minutes of Q&A with our esteemed judges. As soon as you start pitching, we'll start timing. Please feel free to take it from here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Haley.
And today we are pitching for our venture, Microblaster. We are a team of 4 undergraduate women developing an antimicrobial innovation to prevent infection on intravenous or IV catheters. When you're admitted to the hospital, you would never expect to develop an infection that threatens your life, but that's the reality for 7% of patients in the US and 10% in developing countries. In fact, it is entirely likely that you or someone you love has contracted a hospital-acquired infection. Speaking from personal experience, both Haley and I have lost grandparents to hospital-acquired infections that could not be treated with antibiotics. However, it does not take old age or a pre-existing condition to die from antibiotic-resistant infections. To refresh your memory, here you can visualize the insertion of an IV catheter through the tissue and into the vein. In 2015, the United Nations proposed 17 sustainability goals, and the Microblaster catheter addresses both the goals of ensuring good health and well-being and reducing inequalities. Hospitals grapple with the problem of catheter-borne infection every day. They employ teams of infection prevention experts, closely track their patients, and do their best to maintain a sterile environment. However, they are simply not equipped with the proper tools to manage this growing problem. The Microblaster catheter actively prevents infection at the insertion site with a technology that prevents bacteria from making and maintaining contact on the catheter surface, leading to better health outcomes for catheterized patients. Further, many hospitals in disadvantaged communities lack the funding and resources to maintain adequate staffing and sanitary conditions. This means that there are fewer nurses and doctors available to check and change implanted medical devices when they become infected, and more microbes in the environment that pose a threat to patients. In fact, in developing nations, the incidence of hospital-acquired infection is at least 2 to 3-fold higher than high-income countries, according to the World Health Organization. Also, medical device-associated infection density is approximately 13 times higher in low and middle-income countries than in the United States. Our catheters pose a significantly decreased risk of becoming infected. Microblaster catheters will make infection prevention accessible for all hospitals.
Beyond the 17 official sustainability goals, the United Nations and World Health Organization have established a partnership to specifically address antimicrobial resistance. In their official statement, the United Nations said rising levels of antimicrobial resistance will hinder progress towards many of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly those focusing on health and well-being, poverty reduction, food security, environment, and economic growth. To address these imperative goals, we must first work together to stop antimicrobial resistance, and our product can halt the cycle of antibiotic resistance. Over 1 billion catheters are placed in worldwide hospitals annually. It's our vision that we can significantly reduce catheter-borne infection and save thousands of lives by using Microblaster IVs to treat the most susceptible, if not all patients. Further, IVs are not the only implantable medical devices that can cause infection. Devices like pacemakers, artificial joints, and ventilators are also in need of infection prevention methods like the Microblaster coating. We have conducted extensive customer discovery research through the iCore program to confirm product market fit of Microblaster catheters. Additionally, our team has won various pitch competitions. Beyond our competitive qualifications, we are under the mentorship of 4 professors across 4 departments who all endorse our technology's potential. Hospital-acquired infections are a dire problem, and we have the solution. With your help, we can bring this product to market and start saving lives. Together, we will bring the world closer to good health and well-being for all. Thank you.
Great work. We'll go right into our 5-minute Q&A with judges.
So the product you're selling is the coating, or are you coating these devices and then selling those?
Yeah,
That's
so
exactly. Sorry.
I'm happy to take this one.
Go for it.
So the product that we're selling here is the coating, not the device. And we would also use that to our advantage when it would come to creating licensing contracts, because we would be able to collaborate with catheter manufacturers that are already established in order to sell our products. So every catheter would use Microblaster IP.
What is the manufacturing process? How do you apply it?
Sim, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So I'm currently working in a lab at UMass in the Polymer Science and Engineering department. So I'm actually fabricating the coating and then kind of adhering it. What I'm working on right now specifically is to figure out how to adhere a coating to a tubular structure, since obviously you can imagine that comes with a few problems, such as just like cracking and making sure it kind of stays together. So right now, I'm making progress on that. So that is our next step.
So thank you for giving us that background. I think when you have a personal experience with a challenge and then you develop a product, that's wonderful. And it sounds like out of tragedy, there's hope with that. So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned 7% of hospitalizations in the United States, but can you give me a scale? There's reference in the slide of millions and then close to 1 billion. So how many people, how many actual people will die on an annual basis in our country based on this challenge?
Right. As of, I think, 2021, that stat is 30,000 people domestically. That's not all hospital infection. That's just catheter-borne infection. As you can probably imagine, this stat is also pretty underreported. Once infection is found to be related directly to a device that the hospital has placed, all subsequent costs are no longer covered by insurance and then are on the hospital to pay. So it's kind of in their interest to not be reporting these as much as they should.
I'd also just like to quickly add on to that. Class C, which is central line-borne infections, those actually have a mortality rate of approximately, actually probably greater than 12%. So, and those infections usually only occur in the most susceptible patients, people who are already sick, people who are already in the ICU. So this is an extremely pressing issue, especially in developing countries where they don't have the same access to healthcare resources that we have here in the US.
Thank you. I also lost a loved one to a catheter-borne infection. So I so appreciate you sharing this idea and your story.
So sorry to hear that.
Thank you. You talk a lot about bringing this to market in developing countries, and I'm wondering if you have an idea of how you will do that. Would you share the technology, or would you share, I think the question was if this would be applied to the catheters. How would you actually bring this to market in developing nations?
So our plan right now is to license our technology to major catheter manufacturers and then take advantage of their economy of scale in order to mass produce our product. And in terms of developing countries, because they lack the funding in most cases that hospitals here and in more developed countries have, our goal is to be able to use our profits that we are able to generate in the US to subsidize the manufacturing and sending of our product to other countries that don't have the same access to healthcare resources, so that we can actually do something good with this product.
Thank you.
And recognizing that you're still working on the coding itself, but based on the current iteration or iterations, what is it made of? Is it something that is all sourced within the United States? Is it something that could be readily had, the components, outside of the United States, so that the environmental footprint is reduced despite you wanting it to have worldwide access? Can you talk a bit about that, please?
Tim, did you want to take this?
Yeah, I just saw you unmute, so I also stopped. All of the materials that I'm working with are organic, so totally safe to use in the body, but they are also very cheap, and especially compared to the cost of fighting infections and then insurance penalties and a lot of hospital costs on top of the patient lives lost, it honestly would be cheaper to make the catheter that we're making, or like to have that coating. So overall, very safe, and also everything is easily found. So I think it would be totally fine in other countries as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Team Microblaster, for joining us here today. Best of luck to your team.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Okay, judges, as you are filling in your scorecard, we do have scheduled a brief intermission break after our first 3 pitches, and we'll come back for our next 3 final pitches at 1:15 or a little bit before, as we're pulling up our team and diving into our final pitches of the day. We'll give you a couple of minutes to fill in your scorecard and play some music, but feel free to get up, stretch around, and we'll be right back.
Don't exit the Zoom yet, please. Just you can mute your videos, but please don't exit.
Welcome back. If you're in the audience or our judges, thank you for being here today for our first ever social entrepreneurship challenge. I'm thrilled to welcome our next startup of the day, it's another startup, Emily Vishesh Gupta. I'm going to turn it over to you, Vishesh. You're welcome to pull up your screen at this time. As a reminder, you have 4 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes for Q&A. As soon as you start pitching, we'll start the timer. Please feel free to take it away. Best of luck to your team.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it looks great.
Perfect. So I'll start. So hi, my name is Vishesh.
Hi, my name is Chaitanya.
So our startup name is Enveli. With every passing second by we are another step closer to the destruction that might cause by climate change. Coronavirus is just the tip of the iceberg. Climate change is the issue of the century. Millions of US homes at risk of climate-related disaster, but few Americans know it. So from 2011 to 2020, there were an average of 62,805 wildlife annually, 77.5 million acres of land that was impacted, and 58,950 wildfires that were burnt. 40% of these acres were in California. Forest fires can lead to the following problems, such as loss of biodiversity, loss of wildlife habitat, change in the microclimate of that area, and also an increase in percentage of CO2. So we at Enveli understand that strong steps need to be taken to tackle this issue. We plan to tackle this issue by being the Airbnb of climate data. We will leverage currently available data, and in addition to it, we will create new set of data collections through our IoT technology such as drones, autonomous cars, and apply AI algorithms on them to widen our reach to areas out of human influence. Our algorithms will predict natural disasters and changes in the climate before they can make a huge impact and notify people in the region about the same. Now Chaitanya will explain on how it will actually work.
The Enveli technology stack will have three key components, that is IoT devices, Enveli server, and real-time analytic engines. The IoT devices will collect data in the field. These include different sensors for real-time data gathering, example GPS, temperature, pressure, humidity, motion, image, and sound. If 4G or 5G network is available, they will use that to feed data to the server. Otherwise, they will use satellite communication. The next step is the Enveli server will collect different parameters of IoT devices. Like for example, GPS coordinates, timestamp, sensor readings into a NoSQL big database. Besides our own IoT sensors, the server will also periodically receive feeds from third-party systems. The real-time analytic engine will apply AI models to understand the data and provide useful predictions. Some example prediction could be the risk of forest fire basis parameters like temperature and humidity.
We'll be starting with forest fires, but we'll be expanding to global warming, volcanic eruptions, and also pollution measurement. In the news, so climate tech is in the.
I think we lost him.
Vishesh, do you want to unmute?
So climate tech is supposed to produce 8 to 10 more Teslas, a Google and an Amazon, according to Bill Gates. It has gained a lot of traction lately, and the BlackRock CEO, he said that the next 1,000 unicorns will be in climate tech itself. This industry has itself grown about 5 times over the past 7 years. So Enveli is one way through which we actually use AI for good and put our engineering skills for the planet's better. We align with UN's goal 13, that is to take urgent action to combat climate change, and also goal number 3, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all. Thank you. Thank you, judges.
Great work. We will dive right into our 5-minute Q&A.
How will you power the IoT devices?
Yeah, so most of the IoT devices that we power are basically drones. So all of them will be solar powered, and if in case the battery goes down or something, so it will be on us to repair it and get it fixed. So once, for example, if we sell to a B2B based company or government, so they have to pay a small fees, for example, $100 a year for maintenance, and then we'll take care of the rest of the things such as its battery, its maintenance, how to improve it, and also regular software reviews to improve the software itself. So it's not a physical product. Actually, it's how you connect the data that you collect from these devices. You connect it with a server, and then you use that server data to actually notify the people in the region and help them out. Such disasters if they occur. Yes.
I have two questions for you. One is, I'm not clear on who your ultimate consumer is. So if you would address that, please. And the other is that technology is great when you can get it. I think of nearby in the Berkshires, there are parts of our state that do not have sufficient broadband access. So for more remote, heavily forested areas that may be prone to wildfires, can you address how you would be able to get data from those areas for then any sort of preemptive action to be taken?
Perfect. So answering the first question, Julie, even we are not sure who the customer is because we're still in the ideation phase. So, and we are computer science sophomore, so we are more technology inclined as compared to being business inclined. Though at the same time, the idea in my mind is mostly government and some agencies are to the same time, if we can have a B2B solution for it. So it can also benefit companies like IBM because they're working on such projects and we have our vision aligned towards it. So we can use a technology to, and also it's climate data, it's very valuable. We can use this data to test on a lot of different scenarios and see how it can work out. So those will be our primary customers. Also, I think if it's a region, for example, if government doesn't play a big role in that, some countries in the world, so people can basically pool in, let's say, $10 of money, and we can create a solution for them which would temporarily work out. But primarily our target customer would be government agencies, and at the same time some B2B companies that are also working on this, so we can partner with them and work, because I think in the future there won't be a lot of competition in climate tech, but a lot of collaboration, because all are working towards the same thing. So we cannot differentiate or have something very unique out of the blue. Other than that, what was the second question?
It was about in more rural areas that don't have consistent broadband. How would you then collect the data, especially when those tend to be more vulnerable to wildfires?
Exactly. So that's part of our plan is for areas that have good connectivity, so you can always use 4G and 5G to connect with a satellite. But for the areas that they do not have, so I think there are a lot of technologies that I was reading about that are wireless technologies, but they do not require you. For example, this is the same technology that powers walkie-talkie. So you don't need a physical connection for you to speak in a walkie-talkie. So we can use such technologies to actually, because the only thing that we have to do is just communicate the data that we collect through our IoT devices to the server. So if we can figure out the same way on how a walkie-talkie talks to connecting it to the server, then it would be easily communicated to all the people in the region. Or for example, if there is a fire in California, so it can easily tell all the firefighters in the region on which area they need to focus more. So that's something we can definitely figure out. And that's one of the things that might become our competitive advantage is if we can figure it out for regions that are not very well connected with 4G, 5G services and stuff like that. So yeah, so it would be the same technology that lies underneath of a walkie-talkie that we'll have to do more research and R&D on it. But it's something that can be made because it doesn't require a lot of bandwidth to send data from an IoT device to the server. So this is something that can be made possible. Yeah.
So the outcome of your product is information that's provided to your customer. It's not actually reducing emissions or reliance on the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah, but it can also notify in terms of if you have to talk about volcanic eruptions. So prevention is always better than cure. So if you get to know before on something that's happening in the future, so it can help us. For example, if people are having fires in the forest regularly, so it can notify that this might cause a big problem in the future, so they can take some moves to prevent that. So our goal is to help save lives by telling the people in the region, at the same time also recommending some moves on which they can do to improve the environment around in which they live. So that's does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Great job, Vishesh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Best of luck to you and your team.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Great work. Judges, as always, you have a couple of minutes to fill in your scorecard before we pull up our next team. Okay, we have our next startup here. We are going to turn it over to you. As a reminder, Team OpenThink, you have 4 minutes to pitch with 5 minutes of Q&A. You'll see the timer up on the screen. As soon as you start pitching, we will start the timer. Please feel free to pull up your slide deck now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us and for putting this on. And thanks to the judges for coming and judging us. I'm Tim, and I have Nathan next to me. I will share my screen now. Okay, can everyone see this? Are we ready to go?
Fantastic, that looks great. Please feel free to take it away. As soon as you start, we'll start the timer.
Great, okay, we are ready. So we are OpenThink, an online collaboration hub for activists and organizers to change the world together. And we think that with this tool, we will change the world. So there are obviously many problems that humanity is facing in the world, from climate change to poverty and homelessness and hunger and war. And we would all love to see more action being done and more effective problem solving for these actions. We think that we can solve these actions together, and only if we come together from all organizations and all activists to pool our resources and abilities to effectively tackle these problems, right? So the problems that the impediments we're having to solving these global issues are figuring out how to engage with activist organizations from the activist perspective who wants to get engaged, because it's very time consuming to go to meeting after meeting to figure out what's going on and figure out how to give input. And if you want to be involved in multiple organizations, then these meetings just pile up on each other, and it's very hard to fit it into any working person's schedule or even a student's schedule. So the next point is that protests and petitions are great to get people initially involved, but after that point, coordination becomes harder. It's really hard to organize and communicate between tons of people and to get them all on the same page and figuring out what to do next. So also collaboration between groups is difficult, but for individuals to collaborate with each other across groups and within groups, all of this is hard on a large scale. And it's because there are so many people now, and because these issues are so big, so it's a problem of distance, but also of oftentimes of ideology and of cynicism, and not thinking that working together will solve the problem, or not knowing how to work together. So the solution that we have is OpenThink. It's a web mobile platform that enables anyone to engage easily in activist organizations and projects, and to contribute ideas very easily to any of the organizations that they think they can to help out, and also allows people to collaborate across groups fluidly and easily to turn ideas into action and achieve goals very efficiently. So we make it easy to learn about the current activist efforts, to discover what is needed from them, and to contribute ideas and to take action. So engaging more easily in activism by giving groups transparency to show the world what they're working on, and for activists to be able to choose how to participate according to their schedule, their interests, and their experience, when and how they think they can help. So there's asynchronous discussion. There's also integrated voting, so that the best ideas and best discussions can come to the top and be most visible. And of course, with the asynchronous discussion, you can give input on your own time. Working in between inter-organizational collaboration or working between groups is easy through our cross-posting mechanism, which allows any idea or posts and information to be posted to any organization from anywhere. And of course, transparency.
So far, we've interviewed more than 40 activists and organizers. We built a working prototype. We've completed our first round of usability testing, and we're iterating.
We are just over our 4 minutes, Nathan. Thank you so much. We're just going to jump into our 5-minute Q&A.
So we've seen with a lot of platforms today, right? One of the biggest pitfalls, or not even pitfalls, but discussions that need to be had is around misinformation and freedom of speech. So for you guys in OpenThink, what would be your approach towards that?
You want to take it? You want me to say something?
Yeah.
Personally, I think there are good examples of platforms that have overcome this by the, sort of like crowdsourcing and like social voting mechanism. I mean, Wikipedia is a good example when anyone can give, not to say that Wikipedia is always accurate, but for the most part, it's a very good source because anyone can contribute and point out, what information, is inaccurate, and anyone can like provide sources to discover those things. I think another example is Stack Exchange, where like there's voting on answers that enables the most truthful and the most honest and the most helpful answers to come to the top and be most visible. So like if you have people collaborating on that, you can have the misinformation weeded out.
Hi, thank you. As an organizer, one of the basic tenets of community organizing and grassroots organizing is that those on the front lines build power and speak for themselves. How would you ensure that people from outside of the community are not influencing and wielding undue power to change the decisions of the local folks on the ground?
I think the basic concept of OpenThink is that anyone can collaborate and give ideas towards solutions. So, potentially someone from outside the community could give input to problems within a community, but ultimately it's on that community to be able to identify the solutions that would work for them, and then to implement that. And the implementing it and the being involved is what's also made easier by having all of the options in front of you and being able to sort through that by what is apparent, like by what people think is most straightforward or most effective. Does that make sense?
It does, although I would love to ask a follow-up question, which would be, how would you ensure that an outside hate group wouldn't infiltrate a local organization fighting, for example, Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, absolutely. So with each group on the platform can be as open or as closed as they want. There's multiple settings for how discoverable the group is and for who can join. And so basically each group would be able to vet and approve anyone who wanted to participate, or be as open as they want, depending on kind of the threats and how they want to operate as a group.
Great, thank you.
How would you commercialize it? Would you run ads on the site, or is there another path to revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few potential options for revenue. One is obviously advertising. We could even partner with social enterprises and help our users engage in conscious capitalism and provide social enterprises with the exact users that they want to target. The one that we're most focused on is premium, having premium subscriptions for enterprise partners, such as large NGOs like Greenpeace or the Sierra Club, or the national hubs of many of our pilot groups here at the university. And giving them enterprise level features such as enhanced data analytics and membership insights, to unlimited private collaboration spaces, to other customized features that would enable to them to reach their goals faster. So premium subscription is another option, and then also sponsored challenges. NGOs or corporations or governments can utilize the collective intelligence of our user base to help solve public good challenges that they're facing, or CSR challenges for public interest. So these are three possible revenue streams.
And by paying for the promotion of those challenges.
Yeah.
How do you prevent the unwanted sharing of information beyond a disclosure that would be given to a user when signing up? So that if my interest in one area is not shared with another.
Groups can restrict public access to the information and activity within a group.
But the user does not have that protection. So me as an individual participating in OpenThink, I would not be able to prevent people knowing that I'm interested in saving turtles and in Black Lives Matter, for instance.
So yeah, two things on that. One, we're developing a distributed application where the user controls all of their data privacy for the most sensitive of matters. But also, if you want to anonymously contribute, we've been talking about the idea of having server side validation of your identity, like you would with Nextdoor, but the ability to post anonymously. So the validation.
Fantastic. Thank you, team OpenThink. Apologize, we're a couple seconds over time. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Best of luck to you and your team. Thank you, team OpenThink, for being here today. As always, judges, you have a couple of minutes to fill in your judges' scorecards before we pull up our final team of the Social Entrepreneurship Challenge. Okay, team more yin than yang, you are welcome to pull up your slide deck at this time as our judges are filling in their final scorecards. I will let you know when you're good to go. As we're getting ready, do you want to do a quick audio check before we jump in?
Yeah, you guys can hear us okay?
Perfect. And as a reminder, you're going to have 4 minutes to pitch with 5 minutes of Q&A from our judges. You'll see a timer up on the screen along with you. As soon as that kind of goes to the end of those 4 minutes, we'll jump right into our 5-minute Q&A with our judges. We now have all of our judges' scorecards, so you are welcome to take it away. As soon as you start pitching, we'll start the timer. Best of luck to you and your team.
Hi, my name is Summer, and throughout my life, I've found myself having to choose between people and events based on different parts of my identity. Even in college, I barely fit into 2 different types of groups, one that accepts my bisexual identity and one that understands my Islamic background, but there's never one that combines both. I believe that there are others like me, but I have no idea how to find them, and I end up feeling lost. So, how could my contradictions be seen as complementing each other? How do I balance both parts of my identity?
Hi, my name is Faiza, and we are more yin than yang. And more yin than yang, we believe that the contrasting parts of our identity can peacefully coexist to define us. We are changing the customization industry as well as how we identify ourselves.
Our product is a yin-yang style design with a twist. We personalize our design based on how we identify ourselves. Whether I consider myself to be a dreamer or a fighter, bisexual and Muslim, Pakistani and American, this design shows all parts of me without the need to hide or fight against who I really am. I want people with complex identities to feel the same comfort and the same sense of belonging when looking at their own design. These designs can be in the form of earrings, pins, t-shirts, and more, but we are currently focusing on sticker production and plan to scale from there.
So what is our process? Well, we're going to create a website where customers can tell us all about themselves and their identity through surveys. Then we're going to take the data that they give us and send it to the designer, who will then create a sticker design. The designer will send the design to Summer and I, and we will personally print and ship the sticker to the customer.
We have already received $500 in funding and are currently matching designers with test groups for demo designs. In February, we plan to have created our website, finalized the look for our designs and brand, and invested in supplies for the production process. In May, we want to officially partner with designers that will work with our brand, release our product to the market, and implement a marketing strategy. Our target audience is 14 to 21-year-olds because they're at a point in life where they are just figuring out who they are. In addition, we are targeting millennials who work in a corporate setting to maximize our relationship with organizations who may hire us to create designs for their employees. Having something representative of their identity could ease the pressure of going through such life changes while spreading an overall sense of unity.
Our product is our designs that can be placed on multiple items such as t-shirts, jewelry, and more, which keeps our business scalable. Not only that, but we sell exclusively online through our website, keeping the exchange simple and easily recognizable to our brand. We're considering a price that is affordable to the younger demographic, but guarantees a profit margin. We are currently negotiating our price with designers, but expect it between $3 and $10. We want to use social media platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn in order to promote to a broader audience, but still our younger demographic. And for our UN sustainable goals, we fit 3, 8, 10, 16, and 17, but we are most focused on goals 3 and 8. For goal 3, by helping others embrace their identity and feel comfortable with every part of themselves, we are promoting personal health and happiness. In addition, for goal 8, we would love to support designers by providing them work in designing our products. As we get our startup off the ground, we would love to outsource our work to UMass Amherst students in order to support our local community.
We are excited to introduce you to More Yin Than Yang, a business innovating customization as well as creating new ways for our identities to shine. We don't have to hide a part of ourselves to fit in, and we can each find our balance. Together, we can create a community about embracing all parts of ourselves. No more hiding,
no more fighting,
and no more compromising with who we are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team More Yin Than Yang. I'm going to turn it over to our judges to jump into our 5-minute Q&A.
Have you considered offering digital versions of these so people can apply them to their profiles?
Yes, we actually have considered that. We did not add that in the pitch, and that's our fault. But basically, we would love to, with every transaction, send the design that we create for the customers to them in a digital format so that they can add it to their LinkedIn, they can add it to their Facebook profile photo, and send it as sort of a digital marketing campaign for us.
Great, yeah. And how many designs roughly do you think you'll launch with?
Could you elaborate on that?
Like, so are the designs, they're predetermined, so you'll combine various designs per, I don't know, per kind of user, per personality, so that you have a certain set of them when you launch?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. I think what we're thinking of doing is the customer tells us all about themselves and their identity, and then we create a unique design for them. Are you referring to like the format of what like the design will look like?
I kind of assumed you'd be able to use, like, one person would pick a design that sort of speaks to them, if, you know, it could be reused for more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a really great point. So we are thinking of what we're doing right now is the customer tells us all about themselves, and we take the data that they give us and create a unique personalized design to them. But something really important that you brought up that has been turning in my head for a while is that we could also have specific designs that are already made from pre-existing customers, and that can be a database that new customers can look at, and if they happen to like a design from a past customer, they could just automatically opt for that one.
Thank you. That was great. I am wondering if you have looked at all into sort of the broader social movement infrastructure as potential partners. There are, you know, whether it's the Human Rights Coalition or Muslims for Progress or GLSEN, there's a number of organizations that exist out there that could be potential opportunities for you to partner and to market your product.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you brought up. We are considering that not only will we be like selling to individual customers, but we will also have partnerships and sponsorships with larger organizations. One aspect of that was like selling to organizations that have like mental health campaigns within their like companies. And then we would be creating this as sort of an incentive of the mental health campaign for the employees. But when it comes to partnering with organizations, we are currently researching and finding different ways that we can connect with the UMass community. We're still in the research and development process of this, but we are looking at different organizations and communities for test groups for our product here at UMass.
So you said you were starting with stickers, but I see that you have room for growth there. What's your strategy for making sure that you can scale at the speed you want while making sure you're resourcefully sourcing the materials for the stuff that you're sending out?
Yeah, that's a really great point that you bring up, because I think that the biggest issue with this is the distribution levels that we have. I remember when we were going through our process, we do have like the designer, and that's the main distribution level that we have between us and the customer. And that's a very simple process. But as we start to scale, we're going to have to deal with figuring out who's going to create the watch, who's going to create the backpack, who's going to create the pin. And what we want to do is we want to have a very strict process where Summer and I can take as much of the load as we can. So if we can make these things ourselves and reduce our cost and increase our decision-making power, we would love to do that. But there are some areas where we're not going to be able to create certain things, and that's the only time that we want to outsource it. So we're trying to scale it, but also retain the distribution levels that we have, so we don't have so many middlemans and reduce our costs.
So one suggestion might be to create a licensing agreement with certain manufacturers so that the burden of manufacturing wouldn't be on you. I dare say just the piece of equipment to produce a hat is going to be significant. And this way you would have quality control over the actual manufacturing. But the design, your intention, if I heard you properly, is to hold the design yourself and you would create the design? Okay.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you for that. We are considering, like, for example, like the designers who are going to create the design, we are considering like a licensing agreement with them while we're starting with stickers. But like I said, like as we scale, I think the licensing agreement is a really great way to like have control over like the hats, the watches, the sweaters, and like also so we can mass produce them, but have that agreement where we can also like reduce the cost. If we're making like 500 sweaters or 500 stickers or 500 watches compared to like just one. But thank you for that. We are considering the licensing agreements.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Team More Yin Than Yang. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Best of luck to you and your team. Okay, with that, that was officially our last pitch of the day, our final 6 pitch after our social entrepreneurship challenge. I'm just going to pull up a quick deck to wrap before we go into the judges' deliberation room shortly. As our judges are filling in their final scorecards, we wanted to take a second to thank you all for being here with us today. To our judges and our sponsors, we really greatly appreciate. We did want to invite you all to join us on the Innovation Entrepreneurships Academy Awards Night on November 17th, where we're going to announce the 3 winners or several winners from our first inaugural Innovation Entrepreneurship Academy Week. We'll be announcing the winners from the Executive Pitch Competition, the Tech Challenge, and the Social Entrepreneurship Challenge there on November 17th. As a reminder, our 6 competitors are competing for exclusive mentorship. We're going to have 1 winner from this competition today. The judges have a tough decision to make as we go into our judges' deliberation room shortly. We want to remind our competitors and the audience that we do have our elevated pitch competition in the spring, the Innovation Challenge competition that all of our competitors are welcome to apply to compete in, with part 1 happening with the preliminary round and the final happening later this spring, where our startups are going to be competing for $65,000 in equity-free funding that they can help their startups move forward. Additionally, we want to thank our judges for spending their Friday afternoon with us, giving tough and good feedback to our startups, asking great questions. Thank you, Roy, Julie, Caroline, and Eric for being here with us. We really greatly appreciate you, and I know our startups do as well. And finally, this competition in this week would not be possible without the philanthropic support of our sponsors. We're greatly appreciative of all of the sponsors up here on the screen. Eric, thank you for being here on behalf of EY this week. We greatly appreciate you and our other judges for being here today. As you may not know, all of these programs are donation-based and are not possible without this philanthropic support, so thank you so much. If you're out in the audience, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We greatly appreciate you. Judges, we are going to pop the link for the judges' deliberation room into the chat as you're filling in your final scorecard and starting to think through who you want to award that first place prize to. We're going to meet back at our judges' deliberation room in 10 minutes at 2:10. We'll pop the judges' deliberation link into the chat for you, so you're able to pop in there, and we'll send it via email as well. But please fill in your final scorecards, and we will see you over in the judges' deliberation room at 2:10. Thank you so much.
Thank you.